Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday, the 1st of December, and this is episode 97 of Meet the Farmers. I'm Ben Eagle, and today for the podcast, we're heading to southwest Wales. Last night, I spoke to Pembrokeshire dairy farmer Alex Heffron.
It's Farmer Focus.
This evening, I am heading to Pembrokeshire, and I'm speaking to a first-generation dairy farmer who has a strong interest in regenerative agriculture. Alex Heffron, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here. I've been wanting to have you on for ages and ages and ages, and because I think we must have met through Oxford Reel, I reckon, originally.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I remember we briefly met. It would have been about 3 years ago, something. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon so. Tell me about your part of Pembrokeshire and how you came to farm where you are.
Yeah, this part of Pembrokeshire, it's as you would kind of picture a rolling hill landscape.
Yeah.
We've got beautiful beaches, some of the best coastline anywhere, I think, anywhere you could go. And it's a very strong farming area. It's essential really to this area. And where I am, it's dominated by Welsh speaking as well.
Okay.
And Welsh speaking is first language around here. Particularly the village that we're just outside of, Clymych. I'm so glad
you pronounced that, not me.
Yeah. Takes a big getting used to that one. And yeah, there's lots of sheep and there's lots of dairy around here, depending where you are exactly.
Yeah.
We're up in the hills a little bit, so we're at about 200 meters here. And there used to be more dairy farms in this area, and now it's more sheep. But saying that, one of our neighbours just across the valley, there's a small little river between us, is a very large dairy, probably milking, I think it's around 500 cows or something. So there is still dairy up here. My wife and I are both from Swansea originally, which is just over an hour away from where we are. And we were looking somewhere in South Wales, and it's generally easier to find somewhere down this way, to be honest. So we knew a couple of people in this area, not well, but we knew them. There were a few others around here doing something similar to us.
Yep.
Starting off with a small bit of land, first generation, trying something a bit different. So we knew that was going on here. And yeah, we like being close to the sea and the beaches and stuff. So we're about 15, 20 minutes drive here from the coast and close enough to get home to Swansea. So yeah, that's kind of why, really.
Yeah. Tell me about your life growing up.
Yeah, so nothing to do with farming, neither of us. I'm from a little village called Clydach, which is just outside of Swansea. It's kind of neither the valleys nor neither Swansea. It's between the two.
Okay.
It's the gateway to the valleys, maybe, or something like that. I don't know.
That's a good title.
Yeah, there's a nickel factory there, which is probably the reason why it exists. But there's, there are some farms around it. It's just you go half a mile out of half a mile out of the village in any way, and you've got farms there then. But to be honest with you, other than one friend I had in school who had a small holding with some horses, I'd never been to a farm until I was in my 20s, So we moved from this village into the centre of Swansea as well when I was about 10. And that's where my wife is from as well. She's from the centre of town more. So we're proper townies, and didn't know anything about farms, had no interest in farms. My parents didn't care about farms or anything like that. The idea of me being a farmer then is pretty remote and weird, to be honest.
So where did it come from?
We were living in London for about 4 years, and we decided we had enough, and we went traveling. And we went to South America for 6 months. And we'd end up arrive in a city, and then within a few days we realised we wanted to get away from the city and kind of get out more into. South America has these vast wilderness kind of expanses, very different climates and landscapes wherever you go. And we just found we want to spend more and more time away from the city like that. And then we ended up staying on some small farms, eventually ending up doing a little bit of woofing, and got more interested in issues around the environment, around climate change, biodiversity, that sort of thing. And just being outdoors in nature more was just, we'd never really had that before. So it was a new experience for us. And it just sort of started something small in us. My wife had always wanted to come to the country one day or have some animals or whatever, but I really had literally no desire for that at all.
And of all things, you've ended up a dairy farmer. How did that happen?
Yeah, I'm still trying to work it out. Let's see if I can work it out now. So when we got back from traveling, we spent a bit of time in Australia as well, and we decided, okay, maybe we'll try and get an acre or two, and we'll do the kind of self-sufficiency thing and have a few animals and grow for ourselves. And I don't know, we just got a bit carried away. So in the end, we were starting to look into, in Wales, you can do something called a one plant development. And it's a way of building a low or zero carbon building on a piece of land. It can be agricultural land, but you have to grow a certain amount of your food. You have to produce all your own energy and a few other things. So we started looking into that. And originally at one point we were going to do that, but in the end we didn't need to do that. But we were just looking at different ideas for how we could run a business off some land. So we've got a 15-acre small holding, and we came across microdairying as an idea from a few people in the UK that were doing it. And there's this book I read from a guy in America, and we thought, oh, that sounds interesting. You know, that on a small bit of land, you have to do something that's higher value or something that you can add value to. So we looked at market gardening and we looked at microdairying. My wife was more drawn towards cows and animals. I was more drawn towards the gardening side of things at that point.
Okay, right.
But we explored the two ideas, and where we ended up getting a farm, we're at 200 meters. You can go up here. We've got friends here that have a vegetable garden and they grow plenty of food, but it's not an ideal spot for it. And we decided to get a couple of house cows and start doing a bit of milking for ourselves with some jerseys. And it went terribly, and they kicked us a lot in those first couple of weeks. And it was terrible. Like, we were wondering, what are we doing? Like, we enjoyed our first few months living here. Now we've got these cows that are making our life hell at first. And then we discovered what a kick bar is. And it makes a hell of a difference. When you've got a cow that's swinging their legs at you, and my wife's still got a scar on her knee. I got cuts on my hands from them in those first couple of weeks. And the kick bar, they learn to settle. And for people listening who don't know what that is, it's a steel bar that hooks over their pelvis and hooks under their leg, and it pulls up on a ligament that stops them from being able to kick you. And they learn with that they can't really kick. So that was a big help. And gradually from there, we started to get addicted to it, really. We fell in love with the milk and the cream and having all your own dairy that you could process. And the more we milked cows, the more we wanted to milk cows. And one thing led to another, where we decided we were going to try and sell milk, and we got a couple more cows. I mean, a very long story short, we're now milking, it's only 6 cows. Next year, we're hoping to milk 10 cows. But we've been selling raw milk in total for about 3 years. We had a year off whilst my wife was pregnant and doing the early part of our daughter being born. We needed to redo the dairy a bit, and we needed a little bit of a break. So we decided to take a bit of time off. But otherwise, for about 3 years, we've been selling raw milk. And yeah, now we're dairy farmers. And it's interesting because when we come into it, we were totally naive. We had no idea what we were doing. Like I said, we'd never milked a cow before.
Let's go back to first principles and the principles behind your farming. I mean, what drives you, and what are you trying to achieve, do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's good to come back to it, I think, now and again as well, because you can drift away from things, or ideas and thoughts can change. So originally for us, it was this idea. We wanted to get back to land. It was driven by ourselves at first, of wanting to learn how to produce food. Reading around regenerative agriculture, agroecology, permaculture had a big influence on us. And seeing that there are ways of farming that can contribute positively to the environment, and we can play a part in mitigating climate change, storing carbon, and that kind of side of things we started to read more about. So that has always been there for us from the beginning, really, is how do we farm in a way that is working with nature, with natural cycles, where production comes secondary to that, probably. And then the other thing that we were interested in as well, before we even got in, before we moved here, was building a farm that was beyond just the two of us. Wanted something a little bit with more people involved at some point. We didn't have a clear idea of that, but we thought, could we provide a place where other enterprises could start, where we could work together, where one business links into the other.
Yep.
Work with other people. We didn't really want to be isolated, and likewise also we just felt that with a bit of land, that idea of stacking, having different things going on, you can't do it all yourself. Although at first I think we thought you could, but soon you can't.
Let's focus in on micro dairying. For people who don't know, what is a micro dairy? And in terms of your business, how are you growing and developing it?
Micro dairy, essentially it's a small dairy, and the people tend towards certain practices, but it is done differently by different people. And when we started out, there was, I don't know, maybe half a dozen in the UK, I'd say, at the time. And right now there could be 20 or 30 or something. It's hard to say exactly, but it's definitely grown a lot in that time. And generally people milking around 6 cows, but I don't really want to put like a hard definition on it, but some up to say 20 cows or something. It's smaller side of dairying. People tend towards certain principles. So for example, we keep the calves with the cow until they're 6 months of age. So we share the milk then, essentially. Some people call it calf a foot or cow with calf dairying, or different terms for it. That's probably one of the biggest challenges is managing that system, because so in our system we milk once a day. When the calf is about 8 weeks of age, 6 to 8 weeks of age, we start separating at night, but only for about 8 hours. So we have a little calf creep and we lock them in there at night. We would then milk the cow first thing in the morning and then reunite the cow and calf after that.
Okay.
And gradually, as the calf gets older, you extend the amount of time that they spend apart. And then by 6 months, they're only spending a few hours together. And then at that point, if they all seem ready and we're happy, we wean the calves off at that point then. So it's not all micro dairies do that. And some people do it, say, to 3 or 4 months, and some wouldn't do that at all, I suppose. I think most, actually, if not all, are doing that. But it tends towards being mostly grass-fed, tends towards more different breeds. You're not going to see your Holsteins, your kind of modern Holsteins anyway doing that. You might see more traditional Friesians, tend to see a lot more Jerseys and a few other kind of rarer breeds as well, or maybe shorter ones or something. And generally as well, people are focusing on direct sales. I think that would be everyone. And most are processing some dairy as well, maybe selling some raw milk, some are pasteurizing, and processing into yogurt, cheese, butter, cream, whatever. We sell milk from a vending machine direct, which we sell at £1.50 litre in glass bottles. The customer looks after the glass bottle themselves, so they buy a bottle off us for £1, and then they keep that clean, whatever. And at 6 cows, that just about breaks even, really. Like it's no better than that. We're aiming to milk around 12 to 15 cows. So next year, I think it'll be about 10. So maybe the year after, I think we'll hit that number. And then I would feel like it's sustainable, not just paying everyone, but also generating enough to put back into the farm over time, develop a bit of a savings fund, because obviously things break. So you need that fund there. So you can't just about get by. You can't just about produce enough for yourself. You have to think about these other replacement costs as well. So with us, we sell raw milk off the farm, and we're just about to start selling processed dairy for the first time. So it's taken us a little while to get there. We've been trying just to develop everything, really. So, but before Christmas, we're going to start selling cream, yogurt, labna, which is like a cream cheese, which we make that from the skimmed milk from separating the cream, and you make a yogurt, and then you strain the yogurt and you have labna. And also one of our team members here is also going to buy some of the milk off us for her own business, which she's going to be selling ice cream
Brilliant.
and
I was going to
making
say,
her own.
just for a bit of a plug, if there are any listeners in Pembrokeshire, how do they get hold of your products?
Thanks. Yeah, come to the farm near Crymych, Mountain Hall Farm.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so and we'll be selling for the first time to local shops and places as well. So we've got hopefully 3 or 4 places that are going to take our yogurt. We can't sell the cream because it's raw. We can't sell raw milk at other places. That can only be sold off the farm.
Okay.
Cream, there's a bit of dispute over. We're working it out at the minute. They've been changing the regs, so we're not totally sure. So that'll be the new thing, and I think that will use the rest of the milk that we're not currently managing to sell as raw milk off the farm.
Take me through some of the good times from the last few years, but also perhaps some of the harder times as well.
It's hard now looking back. We've been here nearly 5 years now. I think we've been here 2 years and we hadn't had a single day off the farm. And one of us was milking every day as well, because we got the cows we'd only been here a few months when we first got our house cows. And by this, after 2 years, we've been selling by that point for about 6 months. And it was just the everydayness of it. You're always having to get up. You're always having to milk the cows. You're always having to feed the pigs, whatever. And that, not growing up on a farm as well, that's a little bit of a shock as well, that idea of always being tied to it.
Yeah.
And I think we realized at that point that we can't keep this up like this. It was all right for a while, and particularly at the beginning when you've got all that energy and passion and you're new to it and you're not tired, that's fine. But we went through a bit of a difficult period where my wife was pregnant, but we had a miscarriage after 12 weeks, and that knocked us, and we struggled for quite a while after that, and the grief from that was that was stronger than what I suppose we'd have expected, or we didn't know how it was going to be, and that definitely took the energy out of us as well. And I think it was during that time that we met someone locally, and they were just looking for a day or two of doing something in a little bit of money and doing something on a farm. And they'd milked some cows once before, so we said, why don't you come and have a go? And they ended up being a relief milker for us.
So, but by the sounds of it, literally a relief milker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've dwelled on that word a lot. Why do they call it a relief milker? It's quite a strong word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It'd be really interesting to know, where does that word come from? But yeah, exactly. It was literally a relief for us. And we went away for 3 nights, and it's the furthest away we've been, the longest we've been away. Went up to North Wales. We had a really nice time. But I remember on the night before leaving, just feeling this crippling sense of like, oh God, I've got to go back, and I don't want to go back. I need a little bit more time off. I don't want to go back to the everyday of doing the farm, and I wanted a little bit more time to myself and to ourselves as well. Yeah, that was the hardest time, I think, but finding Jackie, our friend, and she's still with us, and that started to take the pressure off. And then someone else said as well that they were looking for a little bit of work, another friend, and who is now also living on the farm, and he as well joined us. And basically we learned by having a small team of people that we could get a little bit of time off the farm, and we could get a bit of normality. Yeah,
which is so important.
Yeah, I know that.
It's so important.
The funny thing is, it's ridiculous to say this now, but when we first came here, I was like, right, I'm never gonna have a day off ever again. I'm never gonna miss milking. This is it now. We're milking. That's how like naive and fresh and green we were, coming into this. But it's interesting too, because those ideas float around in farming a lot, that this is what it's like, and we kind of imbibed that right at the beginning, and ready to take on the mantle and the stoicism of, we're farmers now, maybe in 40 years time we'll have a day off, and we didn't even last much longer than 2 years, so but I'm glad we didn't try and keep going much longer than that, because it got to the point where it's like, why are we doing this now? Like, we actually chose to do this. We haven't got a family heritage and tradition to carry on, and the weight and burden of that, which I imagine it can be, and it's amazing too, but I can imagine there's also another side to that. we came into it. So, and my wife at first was working as a midwife when we first moved here as well, back in
Okay.
Swansea.
Wow.
So we had that at first, but yeah. So it was just realizing it was that feeling of trappedness that I kind of felt, particularly when we went away that time, or when we had that little break and thinking about coming back. And then moving on to good times.
Yeah.
We it's been great as well. We got married here when we were here a year. We had a wedding here on the farm, on the fields. We had a friend who did the ceremony for us, and we had a party in the barn, and that was great. And we've had calves born here, and I can always remember, particularly those first calves as well. I can't remember all of them still, but we haven't had loads and loads. But I just remember that our second calf, Coco, going outside. We knew that Nelly was going to calve because she was out in the field, and obviously she'd bagged up and was looking ready to go. And at about 2 PM, she just walked, like 500 yards in from the field, back down the laneway to the gate, and just waited there, wanted to come into the barn. And she'd never done that ever before, so right, she's obviously ready to come in. So she's probably going to calve. And yeah, that night, we kept a close eye on her, and we kept checking. It was really cold. It was early May, but it was a really cold night. And then Coco was born at something like 3 AM. And then for 2 hours, well, for about an hour anyway, we watched Coco try and suckle off Nelly, and she just couldn't get it. Like, Nelly was just kicking her, just like she kicks us when we try to milk her. Still today, we've had Nelly for years, and she's our favourite cow, but she doesn't really want us to milk her at times. So, yeah, and then, just like helping Coco suckle on her, and it was just a kind of new experience for us. And that's a very memorable time. And Coco, who we could never get in calf, I don't think we'll ever be able to milk her, but she's also never leaving the farm. She's a pet. She'll stay here forever, I think. So we've got moments like that. We've had our daughter here. We've got little Theon, who's now 18 months. And my wife laboured most of the pregnancy in the living room where I'm sitting now. Had to eventually go into hospital for the last few hours, but most of that was in here. We've had parties here. We've made friends here. We've had family here. There's been loads of good times to it. It's a lot of highs and lows. I think it's, it can be quite emotionally, high, low, extremes, with farming. It's there's the stress of it, but then there's also the amazing days where you're outside and everything's great. So
you gave me a few subjects that you wanted to talk about tonight. One of these, as you term it, the self-exploitation of farming, and you wrote a tweet not so long ago, and I actually want to read the extended version. And I'm sorry, listeners, you are going to hear me for the next few minutes because this is quite long, but I think it's important to read the whole thing, as it gives a really good idea of what you mean. So here we go. The self-exploitation of farming means at any one time, I always feel like I'm letting someone down. My wife, who ends up doing more of the household and child work, family and friends that I don't find time to see, and myself when all my time and energy is taken by the farm. Also, the countless messages I can't get around to replying to, the campaigns and local work I can't get involved in, and so on. Farming, or dairy farming anyway, as I can't speak for all forms, narrows your life and places considerable constraints on it. Sometimes I wish we hadn't fallen for the drug that is dairy farming, which is quite addictive, but maybe not always a healthy obsession. There are saner forms of farming. The biggest problem we have is that we are simultaneously building and running a farm and food business. Essentially, 3 small businesses: farming, processing, and selling. If not too much goes wrong by the end of next year, we'll have a sustainable business. But we have said that before. But this time, I think it's true. Trick is next year not to take on too many new projects. I know what that's like. We always knew this year would be hard as we had loads of infrastructure work, back to selling milk again with a totally new system that needed sorting, new team members, and all with a toddler. I wouldn't recommend doing that while struggling with learning how to parent a toddler. There are good and bad periods, but the next few weeks are going to be tough ones. After that, there's some respite. Until then, head down one day at a time, and in a few weeks' time, collapse in exhaustion. I'm just bored of saying no to people and letting them down. Why did you write those tweets?
It's not unique to farming. It's not the only hard job in the world. There are lots of difficult jobs, and it's always difficult balancing a job and a family and children and everything else in life. But I think in farming there is this stoical culture, which I understand. You need that in farming, I think. And there's also something like a bit of a machismo culture as well, macho male. You don't talk too much about things. It's all about working really hard and not showing any weakness. And as you've talked about, and lots of other people over recent years, it seems there's a lot more talk about mental health challenges in farming and for farmers. And I just feel like it's important to vocalize these things, because I'm sure loads of us feel like this from time to time. It's not like I always feel like that, but there are times when the pressure feels really heavy in it, and it's important to share that too, because it's easy to share all the good things, and it's easy to show them the things that look lovely. But sometimes that can, if you're not in a good place, maybe you can feel a bit alienated when you see that, or you can feel alone. And I think it's important to know that there are others out there feeling like that. So I think one of my main motivations for writing it is just so that someone else might read it and think, oh, actually, yeah, someone else feels like that. Because I think for us, the first few years, I felt really nervous to admit that to myself, never mind to anyone else, because I would have felt like a failure. And I felt like, yeah, I'm not a proper farmer. If you're not overworked, if you're not overburdened and stressed, you don't complain as a farmer. That's I'm generalizing a little bit here, of course, but from talking to more people, from talking to a local farming friend, yeah, it's been important to just recognize really that this is common enough and normal, and it's a part of it. And there's no easy answer. There's no silver bullet of, you just got to take some time off or something. I mean, yeah, great. It would be lovely to take time off, but it's not easy in farming to do that. And different times of year, you're going to be stuck. And yeah, like zooming out for me, you want to try and build a system where you can get away, where you can work with other people, so it's not all dependent on you. I think from writing that tweet and then getting the response from some people, Will Evans, Rock and Roll Farming, responded saying he often feels like that he's letting someone down. And I think that was the hard bit. And that's how I was feeling a few weeks ago when I wrote it, was there's all these people I'd love to be able to give something to. I'd love to be able to see my friends or go see my family more. Obviously it's tricky this year, but even, I hadn't picked up the phone enough recently to say my mum, whatever, my brother, and just realizing there's all these people that, they're not putting pressure on me. They're not demanding of me, but I'm not really giving enough because I'm putting so much into the farm. And we've just gone through a really busy period. So we've done a lot of building work over September, October, November. And I realised during that time that my wife is doing all the childcare pretty much. She's doing all the cooking, all the cleaning. I'm not really doing anything, because I'm going out quite early. I'm coming in, later. And there's a toddler that needs lots. We still need to eat, and so on. And the house still needs to be kept ticking over, and all those things that, whilst I'm outside, I mean, I enjoy doing building work. I enjoy farming. I'm just aware that there's another side to it.
I asked this question to quite a lot of people. I quite like it. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be to chill out a bit more, take your time. It's fine to have ambitions and stuff, but take it a bit easy on yourself as well. And I think that's what I like since I've entered my 30s, is I just feel a bit more relaxed about myself and feel a bit less need and desire to care what others think as much.
Yeah.
Just feel a bit more confident in myself, I suppose.
What's your vision for the next sort of few years?
I want to say that we want to just focus on doing what we do a bit better, getting more comfortable with it, not trying to take on too much. But I'm going to counter that straight away and say what we're going to do next year, which is new. Which is like, oh no, maybe I need to go and have another think about this, like listen back to myself maybe. But next year we're putting in a butchery on the farm, which we
Wow.
already sell. We already sell meat, so we've been selling grass-fed beef since the beginning, more or less. The very first thing we did was go and buy 9 Dexter steers from a guy in Devon.
Yep.
And we started selling, and a year later we started selling meat, and we kill one animal about every 2 months. So we do about 6 beef animals a year. We also do pigs as well. We tend to kill about 15 pigs a year. So we've always done a little bit, and
Yep.
we sell out the freezer here. We do some local boxes and stuff. And because we got the dairy and we got the shop, it's quite easy. You take them off, you can put them in the freezer. But we did for a period of time, for about 18 months, do the butchery. We did it with a butcher. So we hired a space, we hired a butcher, and we did all the donkey work, really. We did the dicing, the mincing, the cleaning, the paperwork. He did all the proper butchery. And you'd spend you could spend like 18 hours in a butchery, do it all in one day if you're doing, a large carcass or 2 carcasses in a day. When my wife got pregnant, we decided to stop doing that ourselves. We just let the abattoir butcher do it, and they do a decent job. But we lost some of the control over that. We can't change the packaging.
Yeah.
Little things. They won't do certain things. So they need to standardize it a little bit more, which is fair enough. So we really want to do that again. So next year we're going to put in a very simple butchery on the farm. We're going to get one of those large shipping containers that they use as like a canteen on a building site. So it's a little bit larger, comes plastic lined in that. And we're just going to do that with some very basic kit and equipment. And we've got a friend that he's done his own butchery for years, and he wants to go in and start doing his own charcuterie as a small sideline.
Right. Okay.
So it fits in with this wider vision again, and it's something he wants to run with. We already pay money to a butcher at the abattoir, so that money can go to him to do our animals. He can slowly build up. He does his own charcuterie anyway, but now it'd be a big jump doing that commercially, even very small scale. But basically, there won't be a lot of pressure on it. We're going to put the facilities in. We can start making use of it, and over a couple of years build that up into something. But there is no pressure. He's got a job. He's a tree surgeon.
Okay.
He's got an income. He just wants to build up something else on the side. So
Excellent.
I'm saying I don't want to take on anything new next year, but that doesn't feel like too big a thing. That feels like quite a small thing for us right now.
Yeah. For the future, I mean, clearly there is a lot of change going on at the moment, and a lot of people talking about change. And of course, we've gone through just an unbelievable year, both farming wise, but also just generally life wise as well with COVID. Do you see? And I'm just interested in your viewpoint here, because particularly the way you've been talking of things. But do you see more opportunities or more threats, or maybe both?
So I'm gonna talk more about the situation as I see it in Wales, because farming is different all over the country, and it's evolved, and there's differences kind of between the routes taken, say, in England and Wales. I worry for Welsh farming as a whole. I worry with no deal Brexit coming up, if that is what happens, and I worry about the agriculture bill as it is, without the protections written in place to stop imports of poor quality food that could be sold cheaper. And I worry about that all happening next year. And I worry for the sheep farmers and the hill farmers, particularly, as loads of people talk about, is where's the market going to be for Welsh lamb next year? Is there going to be import tariffs exporting into France, which I think is the biggest buyer of Welsh lamb? What's going to happen next year? I really worry about the impact that's going to have. And it's not just lamb; it's a little bit on dairy as well. It's not as big an export, but it's still an export. And I worry in Wales the impact that will have culturally as well, because
Yeah.
The language is held in rural communities. It is the main language in most of rural Wales. And these, particularly, in the kind of hill farming communities, Welsh is really important. And what will these communities do? What will these farms do in the future if these crises hit, and it does end up being catastrophic for them? So I do really worry about what happens in Wales more generally next year. As far as opportunities, it's what I hope is to recenter agriculture as something central to community and of importance, that food isn't just a commodity that we can export and trade and isn't just about its pound value and what it does for GDP or whatever, but there's more to it, that it's about how we look after our ecologies, our soil, our rivers, our communities, our rural traditions, and that side of things. And in Wales, it is very much tied up then as well with language. And that's the opportunity, is to have a reappraisal of agriculture and to elevate its importance, I suppose.
Yeah, we always finish the show with the same two questions. The first is, if you have a message for the public, what would it be and why?
So, for the public, I would say get involved more with food and farming, and from, on one level, the issues involved and some of the conversations that are being had at the minute around trade and around the subsidy system, because it affects everyone at the end of the day. Everyone's eating, and these decisions made, every single person in the country is going to be affected by it. So get involved with these issues and learn about it, and also get involved with food production. And there's different ways of doing that. It depends where you are, but maybe you can join a CSA or sign up to a local box scheme, or buy milk from a vending machine, or maybe you can get involved with urban agriculture and maybe some sort of community growing project or allotments, growing food in your own garden, on your own balcony, whatever. A lot of people, when you talk to people about growing food, most people, they seem interested in it, and a lot of people would kind of like to do it. So I think just get involved. We didn't come from a farming background. Yeah, I think more people could be involved with agriculture and more engaged with food and farming in general.
Grow food, people. And finally, a message for farmers.
Maybe I'll almost turn it around a bit, and
Okay.
what farmers have said to us, because we're new to it and because we're first generation, and sometimes they're envious of that, because we can start small, we can be a bit more innovative, we haven't got a large business that needs instantly managing and all these overheads and things that get accumulated over the years from different times when farming was different or whatever. So I wonder, is there a way with larger farms, or farms with a long history, can they think outside the box at all? Given, like I was saying earlier, you have to be pragmatic about it. You have to be able to be financially sustainable. But is there a way of trying different things? And what I see on Twitter is that there are loads of farmers out there trying loads of different things at the minute, from trying having some free range chickens, and chicken tractors, to try and putting in a vending machine and trying local milk sales. In our area right now, if you drive 20 minutes in any direction, you're going to find a vending machine. Probably less than that, from 15 minutes, loads popped up this year. So are there ways that larger farms can throw off some of the baggage and try something a little bit different? Because I think there's a lot of change coming, and none of us really know how that's going to go. But it's probably worth trying some small experiments of different things.
Well, we will leave it there. But Alex, mate, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been, that's been fantastic, and some really good messages there. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, Ben. Yeah, I've really enjoyed. Thank you.
It's Farmer Focus.
Welsh first-generation dairy farmer Alex Heffron. Thank you very much for listening. That's it for today's episode, but I hope you can join me next time when I'll be speaking to one of my heroes in the industry, a marketing professional who is also a former chair of the British Guild of Agricultural Journalists, Jane Craigie. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.